Welcome back to Cambridge House Live. I'm Vanessa Collette here at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, and today we're joined by Darrell Pasloski. He is the Premier of the Yukon. It's great to see you, Darrell.
Hi, Vanessa. It's great to be here.
Now, Darrell, what are you the most excited about in terms of the Yukon's development potential?
Well, you know, Yukon has a great plethora of mineralization, very good high-quality deposits of gold, silver, lead, zinc, copper, nickel, iron, molybdenum, tungsten, platinum group metals, selenium. So not only do we have a great plethora of minerals, a lot of Yukon is still underexplored. And so we have a lot, but there's still a lot that could be out there.
Seems to be a lot of potential. Now, there's been a lot of excitement in recent years over the Yukon's prospects, and some are calling it a second gold rush. So how much of that are you seeing?
Well, what we did, we had a great gold rush, of course, a famous Klondike gold rush back in the late 1800s. And through 2010, 2011, we saw, again, a big staking rush. 2011, we had over 114,000 claims that were staked that year. As a result of that, we had a lot of new discoveries and really shored up some of the other work that had been done. What we saw through that was an additional 7.3 million ounces of gold, putting the totals of about 23 million ounces of gold, 50 million ounces of silver, about 10 million ounces of platinum group metals, and that's just the companies that we have here at Cambridge House with us today. Right. So on top of that, there's the Selwyn Basin in the eastern part of Yukon that has one of the largest undeveloped lead zinc deposits in the world as well. North American Tungsten has their Cantung mine, and they also have their Mactung project, and between them that they have at least 15% of the world's known tungsten reserves.
Wow.
So there's a lot of excitement that's out there. We have Canada's only known Carlin deposit, gold deposit, Carlin Cell deposit by ATAC Resources in their Rakla project. And it's an exciting time.
Yeah, so it's called the second gold rush, but really it's not just limited to gold. It sounds like there's quite a bit of mineralization.
Absolutely.
Now, what came of that? I guess there were hundreds of millions that were spent on exploration. What's come of that?
Well, as a result of that, we've seen some of these projects moving forward at this point. What's also exciting is that because of the First Nation self-government that we have in Yukon, we see a lot of the development corporations for First Nations that are engaged as well. The mining industry has always been the largest employer of First Nation people in Yukon. So now that we've had that rush, this government is focused on the things that we can do. So we've invested our largest amount of money in transportation capital expenditures this year. So we're working on roads, we're working on bridges and our airports, our ports. We have access to 3 ice-free deepwater ports. We're working on energy as well, telecommunications. We're working on our permitting and regulatory processes and trying to streamline them as well. And of course, we're investing in education through the Center of Northern Innovation and Mining, which allow us to train Yukoners. Industry has told us what jobs they need, and we're using the Center for Northern Innovation and Mining to create the skilled positions for Yukoners.
So it sounds like all this resource development, all the money that's been spent there has really been a great boon for the economy. Where do things stand with relations with the First Nations? I think you mentioned that a little bit.
Yeah, we're really at the vanguard of modern day treaties in Canada. There's 14 First Nations in Yukon, 11 of them have land claim agreements. That's almost half of the entire country. And it's those land claims that helps provide that certainty that doesn't exist in some of the other areas of Canada where there's still unsurrendered right and title to traditional territories. So those First Nations are actively involved, and their development corporations, as I mentioned, are keenly interested in working with the companies. All the companies that are here with us at Cambridge House today, they all have partnerships with the First Nations that are in whose traditional territories they're working.
Does that take a long time to develop those relationships for the companies?
I think it's important for companies coming to Yukon is to start off by getting into those communities and meeting with those First Nations and starting to build that relationship right from the bottom up.
Yeah.
I think it's very important.
Absolutely. Now, how does the Yukon provide stability for investors?
Well, I'd start by saying it's the cornerstone of our economy. And so it's a priority for this government to ensure that Yukon remains a very favorable place for investment. We have a very competitive tax and regulatory taxes and royalty regime in Yukon. And as I've mentioned, we are investing heavily in infrastructure that will support the industry as well. So those are things that will ensure that we continue to do what it takes and working with, I guess, with the mineral and industry. We're out across the world, really, in conjunction with industry, talking to investors and telling them why it's important, why Yukon is a great place to invest.
You mentioned a lot of infrastructure. I think one of the biggest concerns for investors is always, power access. So what's the Yukon like for power access?
Yukon right now, of all the electricity that we consume, over 95% of it comes from hydro at this point. So it's been a great legacy for Yukon. But we are at a point now where we're beginning to reach our maximum. So there's a couple things that we're doing. Right now, we are converting our backup diesel generators. We're going from diesel to LNG. And I think that this is a transitional stage for us. But there are some projects like Green Platinum and Western Copper's Casino project that are looking at LNG. So our work that we're doing with LNG can perhaps provide that primary infrastructure for them going forward.
Absolutely.
But we're also enhancing some of our transmission infrastructure that we have right now in central Yukon towards the Alexco's Belokino project and Victoria Gold's project, and there's also the Rackles in that area. We're working with the state of Alaska to look at a intertie between Southeast Alaska and Yukon. But really the biggest thing that we're doing for energy right now, Vanessa, is we're moving ahead with the planning stage to create another hydro project. And really hydro, we see this is really to provide that prosperity economically, socially, culturally for generations to come. If we can have renewable, reliable, price predictable energy, I think there's a greater chance that a number of projects will be able to move forward. So I mean, this is good for Yukon, This is good for the mining industry, it's good for investors.
Yeah. Now, there's been, such a steep rise in costs for mining companies, and a lot of companies have been shelving some of their more expensive projects. So in your opinion, do you think you can build a low-cost mine in the Yukon?
I do. As commodity prices have gone down, I think pencils have gotten sharper as well, both contractors, labor, just the capital equipment costs as well. But I'll give you an example of Alexco's Belokino project. It opened 4 years ago, and they went into production for less than $60 million, built it on time and on budget. And I would also look at Western Copper and Gold's Casino project, very large project. But if you look at this project and you compare it to similar projects across the globe, you'll find that the costing for that project actually is in the low to mid-range compared to similar projects. So I do believe that you can do that in Yukon.
Well, a lot of exciting things happening in the province, second gold rush, and we'll definitely be watching with interest. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Vanessa.